Growing up on an island in Jamaica as an orphan was hard. I was constantly bullied. Nobody explained what an orphan is. You're left behind, you're forgotten. No one really cares.
Life on an island. It seemed so carefree, at least in our imagination. But our imagination can play tricks on us, and what looks like paradise from the outside may be anything but in the hidden crevices and unseen corners of a tropical wonderland. Yes, life on an island can feel isolated and empty, but for an orphan, it can be thoroughly dehumanizing. So a young girl named Shamila Campbell, at least that was the name given to her at birth, lived the mundane life of a Jamaican orphan, with very few friends and, except to go to school or church, seldom even got a glimpse outside the confines of the orphanage in which she lived.
When you're in we just say a compound orphanage, it's called West Haven. It's still standing today, which is amazing. Certain amount of kids will be in a room packed together, sleeping on individual beds, and I will sleep with one girl who was probably 10 years older than me because of the limited space they would have. The only time we were allowed to get off the compound was school and church. And when they wanted to take me somewhere that's not school or church, I was like, hallelujah, somewhere new, somewhere different. I only had one friend who made me feel like I was seen. And on top of that, I would go to school, which would be walking miles every day, rain or shine. And it was really hard because when you're an orphan as a kid, you don't really understand that you are unloved or unseen. I would have my biological mother, who at the time of 17 or 18, gave me up for adoption because she was unable to care for me. And she would come and visit me ever so often. And just having that relationship continuing back and forth was very hard. But I don't even remember what she looks like today. But when you're growing up in an orphanage, you're kind of like, whatever. They just push you aside and all that kind of negative stuff.
It wasn't all bad, though, because the monotony of orphan life was occasionally broken up by visits from American missionaries.
These missionaries would come to Jamaica and they would pay attention to us kids for a couple days and they would leave, but they would also come with different activities for us to do. They would make you feel like you're important and they would take that time out of their day to come and see you.
And with the mission efforts came unexpected gifts.
My birthday would come and go, but I would never get presents. And so when I was 5 or 6, I would receive an Operation Christmas box. Every time I would receive it, it was like the greatest thing ever because it was filled with endless amount of activities, candy, toys that we were able to use and play with throughout the whole day or throughout the whole year. And we would carry these boxes, and sometimes we didn't want the boxes to be damaged. So we would put the activities that we want to play with in our pockets, and we would carry them everywhere. And one of the best things I've received were these pickup sticks. And these were a fun activity to do outside with some of my friends. And then one of my favorite ones would be the jacks. Jacks are like gold for me as a kid because I can play it anywhere I want and wherever I want. Just the small thing would fit in your hand and also in your pocket. I would like to say that I don't know if people have ever prayed about the Christmas shoebox, because when people fill up the Christmas shoebox, they just go, yeah, I hope it goes to someone else. No, I think that when people fill up those shoebox, they pray over it when they're done. They pray and hope that God will lead that specific shoebox that they filled to reach the right child. Because such a small item can make a huge impact on the child's life, especially like a child like mine. And when a child receives that box, it's the holy grail for them. Now looking back, that each missionary would pick a child and they would spend like an hour or two with them before they go somewhere else on the island to do the same thing. And they would, for instance, I remember this missionary who, this is why I changed my name as a kid, because my birth name was Shamila Campbell, and I never liked that name. And this missionary who came, her name was Janessa. And after that, after spending time with her, I would have people start calling me Vanessa because it has a prettier name sound. And so all my supposedly friends would call me Vanessa, but if they get it wrong, I would never respond. But when she would come, it was like the best thing ever. It was like the highlight of that day or that year. And it was just really neat to just finally, see missionaries come and go and get a little bit, feel that sense of importance.
The name Vanessa became Janessa, and over time, the new name stuck. But something else was about to happen as a result of one of these missionary visits. Something that would change much more than just her name. And it all started with a dream.
I had a dream, a visual dream, which I've never had before. And this dream was telling me that one day you're gonna get out of this orphanage, one day you're gonna be adopted, which for a kid my age, I was like, what does adoption mean? But I knew for certain, 100% certain, that I would be out of the orphanage. And to make that dream reality, I kept telling myself, that's one day gonna happen. And I was telling my friends that, and they're like, there's no way that's gonna happen. You're just spreading lies.
Perhaps it was all just misplaced optimism, but not to Janessa. And little did she know that 1,000 miles away, a decision was being made that would bring her dream closer to reality. And that's when Cheryl Warner and her husband Jim entered the picture.
Our church in Minnesota had a sponsored child board, and my girlfriend was running it at the time, and she said to pick a child that you'd like to sponsor. And so this is the picture I picked. And I just loved the happiness of this child. And so we knew she had some disabilities, but we just chose it anyways. And I told her at the time that if I'm gonna sponsor this child, my friend wanted me to go down to meet her, and I said, if I go down there, this little girl is mine. It was the first mission trip we'd ever been on, and so she challenged us to go down and meet her, but it also started our life of being missionaries. So twofold.
We had never been on a mission trip before, so this was kind of a new experience for us, and traveling to a foreign country and all the sights, the sounds, and the smells thereof. So it was a great experience for us, and it started a new chapter in our life for sure.
My first encounter with the Warner families, I shouldn't say my first encounter, because they came like all the other missionaries, and I was the kind of kid who doesn't really like to socialize because I was a little bit shy. So something compelled me to get outside my comfort zone and go and socialize with the missionaries. And we instantly clicked. And it was like, she made me feel so important beyond all the missionaries that I've seen and met growing up. And it was like, wow, she really gets me. She really sees me, and she's hilarious.
I think it was a God just spoke to my heart when I saw her picture, and then the challenge of going down there on that trip was such a meaningful thing for us as a family, because we took our youngest daughter with us too, who was 6 at the time. And it was just a new experience all the way around. But when we actually met her and saw her, she was just too fun. That she is just a God-given joy in her that bubbles over, and she was just a sweet child.
And for Jim and Cheryl, this was just the beginning of a new and unplanned chapter in their lives.
I was driving to work one day in Minneapolis. We commuted from the southern suburbs, and I had to go downtown Minneapolis. And I was listening to a special on the Christian radio station by the Finishers organization, Bob Buford. And he was just challenging people like me at the time in the 40s to finish your career in the ministry. And I went to Cheryl and I said, I think this is something we should do. And I think her expression was, it's about time, or what took you so long? And so that's when we decided to join the staff of Campus Crusade. And we were going to go to Florida.
And then from there, we went to Global Aid Network, which is where we did all the different mission trips.
And so that brought us over to Dallas 2.5 years later, and that's where we've been ever since. And that's when we started ministering in Haiti after the devastating earthquake in 2010. And we had been back and forth to Jamaica, and so we had a lot of time with Janessa, but yeah, there was another purpose. The purpose was actually to lead a team down to do a mission at the orphanage, but in our minds also to get to know her and to start working on the process.
The process. Remember when Cheryl told her friend that if she made the trip to Jamaica, that little girl in the picture would be hers? Well, the process of making that a reality was about to be put into motion.
We have 4 adopted children from South Korea at the time, and my husband was kind of at the point of being done, but when we went down to see her, meet her, then we both agreed that we were going to adopt her.
Immediately being down there, I was just reading my wife, her dynamic, and there was a strong belief that Janessa was ours. And it didn't take long that I, both intellectually and emotionally knew that and believed it.
But that process of legally adopting Janessa would not be easy.
You're in Jamaica, and it's a relatively corrupt area that we're working in, and because there's no agency in the U.S. that'll work with Jamaica, and no agency in Jamaica that will work with the U.S., it was just a family going down there and doing the best you could to find a child or get a child out that you had chosen. And so it did take us a while to get her out.
It did take us 2 years to get Janessa out of the country, from her being 7 to 9. When we first started the process, we thought there would be a process. And so we went into the office, and the Child Protection Agency, I think it was called, we walked into an office. It was a bare bones office with a metal desk, a metal chair, and a calendar on the wall. And almost instantly I knew that this was going to be a different experience. And the gentleman walked in, had a strong accent. We could barely understand him. And he acted like he had no idea what was going on. And so that started the process. And we were in his office many times. We did go back and forth a number of times in the 2 years. And every time we would go back, and it seemed like the process would change, or he didn't know exactly what the next step was. So there was just a lot of prayer, talking to nationals, Jamaicans that we respected, and getting some advice of what we should do. And a couple of things happened, and one of them I'll share with you that was just quite amazing. We had gone in, and toward the end of the process, there was this 3-person panel in Kingston, which was across the island. We were in Montego Bay. And there were 3 people that had to review our form and sign it. And this team met for 1 day, once a month. And we found out they had just met the day before. And so we had been there almost 6 weeks, and we decided we're not going home without Janessa. And so we were having supper that evening at the compound we were at, the YWAM compound, and the couple that ran YWAM compound were Jamaicans. And so they came up and said, could we eat with you this evening? And we said, sure. And they said, how's your day going? And so that's when I shared with them this dilemma. And they said, well, who are these people? And we had their names, so I rattled off their names, and the husband says, I know them well. I'll call them, and you go back and you send that over tomorrow, and I'll have them sign it. And that was kind of a shock out of the whole country. So we went back, talked to this gentleman again, and he said, okay, we'll send it over overnight. Now you have to understand, here overnight means overnight. Well, in Jamaica, overnight doesn't necessarily mean overnight. And I said, well, I'll pay for it. And then the other shock was, no, we'll take care of it, which really surprised us. So we sent it off. And sure enough, the next morning, we went back, and there it was. It had gone to Kingston, they had signed it, and sent it back to Montego Bay, and it was waiting for us the next morning. I mean, that was a miracle in and of itself. And then we had to go to visit a judge to have her sign off on something, get to the airport so we could fly to Kingston before immigration or the embassy closed, so that we could have this all finalized so we could get on a plane and go home. And the judge showed up late, and our driver said, we've got to go. I saw her go around, I walked in the back door with her, she signed the form, we got in the car, got to the airport 10 minutes before the flight, got to the other side, the embassy was going to close, there wasn't a taxi waiting for us, but finally we found one. We got to the embassy just before it closed. They got everything together and put all the documents into this envelope. They sealed it and said, don't open this till you get to immigration in the United States.
We didn't know what paperwork. We were handed at the airport a packet, and it's sealed. And we have no idea what's in that package. Are we going to have to turn around and bring her back? You know, we just had no idea. So we walked into the airport when we landed, and my husband and I are kind of a little bit scared, like, oh my gosh, is this really going to work? And we get in there, and this guy, not a real total welcoming guy, he just takes the envelope from us and he rips it open, and we're just standing there looking at what he's pulling out. And he does some stamping on a few things, and then he puts it all back in the envelope and says, welcome home. We just all started crying. I mean, it was just very emotional, and knowing that we had her, that she finally was ours.
They had to jump through hoops to get everything finalized, and it was God working all the details way ahead of time before they even understood what was happening.
Even though it was totally chaotic and confusing, when we look back on it, everything made sense, and the steps along the way, and God, there were so many little miracles along the way that it was just unbelievable.
He documented the whole thing. We've got a book on it, or a little devotional thing, or whatever he wrote down, but it shares just miraculous things that went on and on. Different things, paperwork showed up that they said they didn't have. We had to take a small flight into Kingston to get something signed, and the lady was on vacation or something, and so there's all these little things that just fell into place. And so we were there 6 weeks to get her out, but she never left our side the whole time. So it was a total God thing that we got her.
It didn't really hit me until the adoption agency woman said, are you certain you want them to be your parents? And I was like, yeah, wow, yeah. And so she's like, you have the right to change your mind. And I was like, heck no. And that's the dream that's coming true of, you're gonna be adopted. You're gonna be leaving this hellhole that I grew up in and going into paradise. So. And finally, when that dream came to reality, I told my friends, see, God was telling me something. And once that finalization worked out, I finally was able to go to the airport and go on a plane. I've never been on a plane in my life. It was scary, exciting, and thrilling at the same time, a new experience. And that airplane flight, I was able to go up front to meet the pilot, and he gave me a pin, but he also kind of let me fly the plane, which was really cool. But I got to see the whole view of being up in the clouds. And in my mind, I was like, I'm in heaven right now. It was a really cool experience. It was uncharted territory for me, and I didn't know what to expect. And at the same time, I didn't want to be too wildly crazy excited. It was just all mixed, jumbled emotions. I secretly had to pinch myself a couple of times, like, this is not quite, I'm gonna wake up from this dream. It's gonna be over in 2 seconds. And it kept going. Like, when the plane landed, I went into the airport, and then the shocking part was when we actually had to go outside of the airport. It was freezing cold. It was snow. So imagine coming from an island that is hot, 103 degrees, to 30 below degrees. It was like a shocker. And then when we got everything loaded in the car, The weirdest thing I've ever seen was a dog in a car. We came to a stoplight and there was a dog with a hat and a scarf. And in Jamaica, dogs are known to be vicious guard dogs. So when our car stopped, and I was like, what? Then we came to the house and it was just all so overwhelming. They showed me around the house. They showed me the bedroom that me and my younger sister were gonna share. And my younger sister, were really close even to this day. She was telling me that everything in this room is ours. So what you want is yours. And then the next morning, I got up and got dressed, kind of still thinking that I'm still in a dream. I got up, got dressed, get ready for the day, and I'm ready to start doing chores, start getting, all the activities and stuff done. And my mom, thinking that she knows that I've had oatmeal growing up. I hated oatmeal even to this day. But she thought that American oatmeal would be really good experience because the oatmeal I grew up with was literally like liquid, runny, gross stuff. And so she took the bowl away and she said, what was I thinking? No, we're not doing that. So she put a bowl of cereal in front of me and that was like, okay, so I'm not really dreaming, it's reality. I remember asking my little sister Jamie, I remember asking her, what do we call her? Our mom, I said at the time. But I'm like, do you call her Cheryl? Do you call her Mrs. Warner? And she goes, you call her mom. And I was like, wow. Like, I actually have a mom. I have to call her mom. I didn't want to make it sound, I didn't want to say mom or mama or mommy or whatever you want to call it, but I want to make sure that I got the right word to call her. And she said, you can call her whatever you want, but I call her mom. And when I first said that, it just really hit that I was home. It was a really life-changing moment. Cottonwood Creek is a life changer as well. I love how there's so many different races, because I've grown up in churches where there's only one color in the church, and it's hard to fit in because there's only one color. Cottonwood Creek has different race, Black, Hispanic, Italian. It's just a whole rainbow of colors.
So get up and praise the Lord. So I throw up my hands, praise you again and again.
Cottonwood Creek has changed our lives tremendously in a lot of different ways. And I can remember the first Sunday we decided to change churches from where we were to get better involved in something that was closer to home, and mainly for the two daughters that are still living at home here. And so we went to church that first Sunday that we came, and we walked in, and it's a huge church compared to where we were at. But we just felt the Spirit of God in that building. And we went in and we sat down and the worship played.
Hallelujah.
The mega worship played. And we just, both my husband and I had tears the entire time. We knew we were home. And we stayed. And we were just visiting that Sunday. We stayed.
One of the things we just love about Cottonwood Creek is the worship and the teaching. It's just the first few weeks we were there, we were weeping during the worship, and then after that's done, John Mark gets up there and starts teaching, and it was just a tremendous blessing to the whole family.
I was able to make really amazing friends and build up that foundation of we're all here for each other. And we're not leaving anybody out because of their background or what has happened for them in the past. We're focused on here and now, and we're continuing to grow in the years and the days to come.
It's who I am. It's who me just tell you this. If you've never given your heart to Christ, today could be the day.
From mega worship to life group leadership, the Warner family has continued to play an integral role at Cottonwood Creek. If you would like to find out more about adoption or any of the mission work related to Cottonwood Creek, text missions to 77978. This has been At the Creek. I'm Brooke Ross.